and introduce you as well. So my name's Beverly. I'm the one of the owners, co-founders of Silverleaf Practice Management Solutions. And we have Amy Everhart here today with us. She is a nurse practitioner that started her practice up how long ago? How long did you start
A
your
year and a
practice?
half,
Year and a half?
I guess.
Yeah. And so
Yeah.
she's going to tell us a little bit about her practice and things that she went through. We've got some questions that she's going to answer for us. And so hopefully this will help other folks that are interested in starting up their private practice and kind of give them some tools, tips, and all that kind of fun stuff to get going. So Amy, if you wouldn't mind, go ahead and introduce yourself. Let us know a little bit about you, your practice, where you're located, the services that you offer, and then we'll get
Yeah.
started.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I'm Amy. I am in Central Ohio. I have a practice. It's called Well Balanced Women, psychiatric practice, where we specialize in women across the reproductive lifespan, but we really see women 18 and up as far as their mental health. And it's been cool. It's been exciting to niche down and see patients that I really wanted to see and that I could connect with. And I actually just a couple months ago grew, so it's not just me anymore. I hired 2 nurse practitioners.
Awesome.
So in just a year and a half, I've been able to get myself going, get my own caseload, grow and hire. It's been a lot of work, of course, which we'll talk about, but it's been really fun. So yeah, we do primarily medication management. I'm starting to introduce like some integrative stuff, integrative psychiatry. Maybe I'm gonna look into like some hormone stuff, maybe, and then like just brief psychotherapy and a little bit. We don't do counseling on its own. We have lots of therapist referrals for that.
Nice.
But yeah, we do in person 1 day a week. I'm in the office today, and then we're virtual the rest of the week. So patients have the option to do either whatever they want to do.
That's so cool about doing the niche specialty on the women's
Hmm.
side. You don't see a lot of
Yeah,
that, I don't think. And I think
yeah.
that's really, really needed. I think
Hmm.
women's health in general, I think is a huge thing that people miss out on. I'm of the age that, I'm getting into the menopause side and
Yeah.
it's hard to find providers that understand, especially male providers. And I'm not trying to be sexist there at all, but
Hmm.
know what hormones are really all about, and to have a woman that can really get into that and,
Hmm.
understand depression plays a big part in menopause and, being able to look at both sides and really understand
Yeah.
women and their complexities and stuff and be able to treat that. So that's awesome. I'm glad
Yeah.
you're doing
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's so impressive. So what inspired you to start your own practice? How did you get started in all this and those thoughts? Where did those come
Yeah. Yeah. So my first 2 years as a psych NP, I was working at another practice. I had clinical there, and then I just kind of stayed on after. And we saw, I mean, everything, all sorts of diagnoses. It was really a lot of community mental health. And I got comfortable prescribing, and I just kind of was like, who am I really? What patients am I like really enjoying more? Who can I really help? Who can I relate to? And when I felt like it was time to move on job wise, I was looking, and I was like, I don't like any of my options. So I guess I'm going to make my own option and I'm going to start my own practice. I used to joke
from?
about it, like, wouldn't that be funny if I started my own practice? And then I actually did. And I just decided that I was going to specialize in women and moms and just kind of see what happened. And it's taken off. It's
Oh, good for
expanded,
you.
I'd
So
say. Yeah.
you're concentrating on women and moms and
Yep, yep. So I got like perinatal mental health certified through PSI. I was focusing on like pregnancy, postpartum, so I have additional education there. So there's like a niche, and then I see moms that are like myself that are just in the thick of life, struggling. And then the perimenopausal space, which is why I'm interested in adding some services in 2025, like hormone services and stuff that I'm not really ready to do yet, but I'm hoping to be able to add. But yeah, I was just inspired by my own journey. I mean, I have 3 kids. I've been through it as a mom in various ways, and I just wanted to kind of. I always say my goal has been to create the practice that maybe I always needed myself in my motherhood journey.
that's a great way to think about it though. I mean,
Hmm.
and I think it just kind of fills your soul too. You know what I mean? Like I think when you're working for other people, you're just in the drudges of the day to day, and
Yeah.
when you really find that thing that really sets you on fire, I think that, you feed your soul and you're also making some money. So it just doesn't
Hmm.
feel like work, I think, at the end of the
Yeah.
day. It's still
Yeah.
work, but you know what I mean. Um,
Yeah.
so if you could go back in time, what advice would you give your younger self about starting a private practice?
So many things. I feel like.
Got to.
Yeah. The biggest thing I think is, just take it one little step at a time. You know, that saying, elephant gets eaten one bite at a time. Because when you look at the whole picture, it seems very overwhelming. Might not know
Right.
where to start or what action to do first, or actually, it seems like way too much needs done, so I'm not going to do any of it. But if you just do like one little thing a day or one little thing at a time, um, it all starts to add up, and
Mhm.
you don't have to be afraid to move forward. It's the overwhelm, I feel like, stops a lot of people. They get analysis paralysis, um,
Exactly.
and they can't push past that. Another thing would to be just find, like, try to find a mentor, maybe someone that can help. And there's groups like your group, your Facebook groups. There's so many people on there, like just like Facebook messaging people sometimes, like just having someone you can ask certain things to is really, really helpful a lot of times. Someone
And I
that's
think
going
everybody's
through,
pretty willing to help too. Wouldn't you
yeah.
think? I mean, I
Hmm.
I know that nurses, we've been said that we eat our young or whatever, but I
Yeah.
found in this group, it seems like everybody seems to be very inspiring. You're going to have those few outliers or whatever, because they're
Yeah.
feeling, especially if you're the same state with them, they're like, you're my
Yeah.
competition.
Yeah.
But if you're not, I feel like everybody's kind of empowering each other through this
Yeah.
journey, and I really like that,
Hmm.
that aspect. So let's see. Starting any business comes with challenges. What were some of the biggest challenges you faced when starting your practice? When you talked about having, not getting overwhelmed, what other
Hmm.
challenges do you feel like you faced getting
Yeah.
overwhelmed?
Well, the imposter syndrome, of course, for
Yes, for sure.
sure. That's huge. But I think just figuring out like the nitty gritty of it, like, am I gonna take insurance and how am I gonna do that? And like what EHR am I gonna pick? Like the you get decision fatigue pretty
Yeah,
quickly because there's so many small decisions to make when really it's not that serious. Like, yeah, some things are better than others, and some ways to
yeah,
do it are better than others,
yeah.
but it's better to just pick something and move on than to be stuck in that space of I don't know what to pick, so I'm not going to pick anything.
Right. And I think that even happens, we see it happen with providers in like logos, even, right? So
Hmm.
they get so focused on, can you add a little leaf here? Can you
Yeah.
make this, change the font? No, change it back, change it back. And so it's like I tell people, you're not married to it. People
Yeah.
rebrand all the time. Pick something, move
Yep.
on, pick an
Yep.
EHR, move on, because
Yep.
if you let all this stuff bog you down, you will feel really overwhelmed.
Hmm.
And then like you said, you get the analysis paralysis. You're like, I can't do this. And then you just
Hmm.
quit. We've had two providers that we've tried to set up along the years. We've been doing this for, well, it'll be 5 years in January, that they just
Yeah.
quit talking to us. And I think because they got so overwhelmed, they just shut down. But
Yeah.
there's so many decisions. I mean, you're right. Even trying to get to the decision of picking something like an EHR, and then you have a lot of decisions inside of that as well. It
Hmm.
feels like a never ending road of
Yes.
decisions and stuff. Were there any other challenges you wanted to mention? Or that was probably the biggest one?
Um, yeah, I think those are some of the biggest ones, and just learning how to start like getting patients. Like, how am I even going to like do that?
Mm,
Because obviously you don't have a business, you don't have patients. So learning like how am I going to do that and stepping outside of my comfort zone to like, start networking and reaching out to people. And that's really how I've built my businesses and relationships. And I would say that was a big hurdle to get over. Like little old me, like, hi, do you want to meet with me? Like, that sort of thing was
completely
was
get
really
you.
tough.
I completely get you. And I think a lot of people have the misconception, or maybe it's not a misconception, but they just think, well, I got my website out there. People will just start
Hmm.
flooding in. And that is not the way it works at all. You
No.
don't even show up anywhere. If somebody Googles you, you don't show up until, start getting social media set up and all of that. And it
Hmm.
takes time. Social media and all that stuff electronically takes months, 6 months or
Hmm.
so to really get rolling. But
Hmm.
getting out of that comfort zone and talking to people, I recommend that anybody, arm's length from you should be getting a
Yep.
business card. Your hair person, your nail person, your lawn guy, whomever,
Yep.
because is it 1 in 4? Maybe it's 1 in 3 now. People
Yeah.
have mental health issues. And so if they don't need your card, they probably know somebody that does. So just
Yep.
talk to even your own network, other nurse practitioners that family nurse
Mhm.
practitioners, therapists, all of those people, getting them, if you could just get 5 minutes of their time and give them
Mhm.
information. But it's hard. I'm an introvert.
Yeah.
I don't like getting out and talking to strangers, and
Yeah.
you have to really overcome that. And the more you do it, I think the easier it gets. But
It
those
does.
first
Yeah. And
times, Here's my card.
I have to give you some thank you because I've heard you say that a few times in other things like little videos I watched or whatever, and I hear your voice in my head a lot, like who am I seeing today? How can I tell them about me? Kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that's been really helpful. And yeah, anybody that knows me at all knows exactly what I do.
I was amazed when I first started doing this, how many people thought nurse practitioners were therapists. They
Oh,
didn't
yeah.
understand that you can prescribe. So
Yeah.
breaking down that educational thing with people, I
Mhm.
think is huge. And just having a joke and say, when you're a hairdresser's chair, you have a captive audience,
Yeah.
and that person sees a lot of people, right? So she hears a
Yeah.
lot of people's problems and issues
Mhm.
and stuff. And if she knows what you do, she can hook y'all up. Just those little things like
Yep.
that you don't think about. People that know other people that know other people, and before you know it, your business, you're seeing, mom and kids and everybody else that's in the family
Yep.
because they all like you and they want to come to you.
Yep.
It's that you say I'm in your head. Hopefully that's
Yeah. It's a good thing. It's gotten me far. Yeah. It's a good thing.
but yeah, those are just those little things, and that didn't cost anything, right? You getting out
Mhm.
there and talking to people on your own doesn't cost anything, and keep the business cards are cheap. So having I think they even have a little thing now that you can wear like a bracelet or something, and you can like send your information to somebody's phone. I think I remember seeing that the other day. I thought that was kind of
Really
yeah. So you can just have it on you and just share it with them on their phone. But
interesting.
I mean, people don't think about church. If you're in Sunday school or whatever, and you're talking to people about your business,
Mhm.
there's just so many opportunities out there that you
Yeah,
can just talk
there
to
are.
people.
Mhm.
So what do you think the biggest misconception about starting a private practice is?
Is that it can't either A, it can't be done, or B, that there's not enough patients for everybody, kind of thing. I'm guilty of that myself too, competition. And I think especially like as you're new and starting out, it feels like, why would they pick me over so and so that's been established, right? And it's gotten better as I've gotten on because I'm becoming that person that's established. But it's hard at first, but you just have to bring something unique to the table. So anybody can do it. You just need to differentiate yourself a little bit, no matter how many practices are around you or in your state or whatever. Because I feel like there are a lot popping up. A lot of NPs are doing the hard things and starting their own practices. But yeah, I think that's a huge one. Something I still struggle with, but I'm getting better.
I think it's probably that imposter syndrome a little bit. Like, can I do this?
Mhm.
Am I going to be successful at this?
Mhm.
I think the other thing to think about is, yes, all these people may pop up, but how many are going to last? Because
Right.
they're not doing the things that they need to do to get the people into their business, and they just hang they did their website and they're like, oh, okay, nobody's coming, and they're not taking
Mhm.
time to do the marketing and maybe even spending some money on marketing or whatever, and they're just
Yeah.
waiting. They're not going to be
Yeah.
successful, unfortunately, and so
Yeah.
you really and you probably agree with me, entrepreneurship is not for the faint of heart. It's hard work. You still have
It
to, I mean,
is.
days that you probably work 16 hours because you're doing, and before you got,
Yeah.
people helping you and stuff, that you're wearing all the hats, and it can be very stressful, and not trying to deter anybody, but it just makes you wonder how many of those people are going to stay for the long haul. And
Yeah.
then past that imposter syndrome too, of saying, I can do this. You're no different than anybody else out there starting.
Right.
You to put your mind to it and do it. What's the worst thing that can happen too? What's
Right.
the worst thing? It doesn't work out. You got to back to work for somebody. You still have a
Yeah.
job, so
Exactly. Yeah.
it's the worst case scenario, and you write off all the business loss and all that kind of stuff on your
Mhm.
taxes. So
Mhm.
people, even
Exactly.
if you look at the
Yeah.
most successful people out there, right? They've either bankrupted or failed in a few businesses, and they just kept going, right? And
Yep.
eventually, they were successful in something. So finding the niche, I think, is very helpful, or
Mhm.
putting yourself out there as a subject expert. So maybe if like I know you do women's health, but if somebody said, you know what, I think I really like bipolar disorder. I don't know if there's anybody out
Yeah.
there that really likes bipolar disorder, but you know what I'm
There might
saying?
be.
They're like, I'm going to
Yeah.
become the bipolar disorder expert, and I'm going to go study, and I'm going to put myself out there as I'm the expert on this.
Mhm.
And people will see you and go, oh, really? You specialize in this? And they'll gravitate towards you. So I think having
Yep.
that, and then also opening the idea of other things, like you said, bringing hormones into your office.
Mhm.
There's
Mhm.
so many different things that you can do with psychiatry, TMS, the TMS chairs,
Yep.
ketamine, Spravato. I mean, there's so many other things that you can offer as well. It just takes time,
Yeah.
to bring those things in. So
Definitely.
anywho, the next thing, financial planning is vital for any practice, right? So what should someone know about the financial side of starting your private practice?
Mhm. Yeah. And I think that's going to be like specific to the person too, right? Like some people are going to have more availability to work less at a job while they start the practice.
Mhm.
But for us, like a telepsych practice, it is not crazy expensive to start up. So you don't need to have like 100K in the bank or anything. Like
Right.
it's
Right.
not that expensive to get started. Um, it just might be harder to find time because if you're working somewhere else. But you can, if you have a little bit of money saved, it's not that you need an EHR, like a way to communicate, a way to take insurance. There's not a ton of things that you need if you're going to at least start telepsych. So I think people also get roadblocked because they think about, oh, I don't have startup. I don't have all that money saved for startup. And it really, I mean, we're lucky in psych. We don't need a bunch of equipment. We don't need
Right.
all that stuff. Like we can just get started. And then as you start your practice and it builds, you can pull back on your other job. That's what I did. I was working for another practice and I was seeing my own patients in between those, and it got to be too much. And then I was able to pull back there and go full force into my own. And it's just going to be hard when you're doing both those things, but you have to see the bigger picture and the light at the end of the tunnel that eventually I'm going to be just myself in my own practice, not working two jobs or stretching myself too thin.
And yeah.
Um, and then
And I
as you
think,
earn money, you
I'm sorry.
pay the
Go ahead.
business. And then as you earn money, you
Mhm.
pay the business expenses. And next thing you know, you're making money. And yeah, it just happens.
Expenses, but next thing you know,
And next thing you know, it's like, you're making money, you're not worrying too much about expenses.
yeah.
So it doesn't take a lot to start.
No, it doesn't. And I think, I personally think that working evenings and weekends actually are a draw to people because I know when we first started all this, we set up my boyfriend's practice and his
Hmm.
nights and weekends filled up faster than the rest of the week. So if you have a full-time job and you're working, the basic 9 to 5, offering those
Hmm.
hours evening and weekends can actually be beneficial to you getting your business up and going.
Yeah,
And I think it's important to have a business plan. Like you should know how much money you need to have, right, to
yeah,
pay your normal bills as a, not a provider, but and also pay your provider bills. So kind of where that cutoff is so that you don't
hmm,
stop your job too soon and then freak out because you don't have the money to support yourself or to support your business,
exactly.
until it gets really up and going. So it's kind of a balancing act, I guess you could
Hmm.
say, to getting everything the way that it, financially to come
Hmm.
together. And then, like you
Yeah,
said, right, different situations, right? You may have a spouse that can take on financial responsibility for a little while you build things.
yeah.
You may want to put some money in the bank just to kind of have that cushion. That's always a good thing, right? To have your little
Hmm.
savings for emergencies and that kind of thing. But some people have taken out mortgages on their house. I mean, that's a personal decision. There's just so
Yeah.
many different ways that you can credit cards. I know my
Hmm.
boyfriend and I, when we started his, we had a couple credit cards and we just used those,
Hmm.
and then we were both working and trying to make it off of that and paid the cards off and we were good.
Yeah.
It's just different options of financial things, but you definitely should have a plan, I think, of
Hmm.
how much is this going to cost me, how much do I need to save every month, and then
Yeah.
go from there. So
Yeah.
um
And understand there'll be times where it's messy. It's not going to be perfect.
yeah, but don't let
Hmm.
that, I call it kind of your reptile brain or whatever, creep in,
Hmm.
the imposter syndrome, going, you can't do this. See, I told
Yeah.
you're going to fail.
Yeah.
You don't have the money. Squash all that. See, I'm going to be
Hmm.
just fine. It's going to be just fine. It all works
Yeah.
out. Um, so what advice would you give to someone considering starting their own private practice, if you had some, other than what we've talked about?
I would probably say make sure they're in your Facebook group.
Oh,
That'd
yeah.
be good.
Yeah. Helpful.
Um, because I mean, there's not really I mean, that's why it's so hard to start a practice because there's no like one good place to go to be like, do this, do this, do this, do this. I feel like you guys provide a good resource to people and you have like, different things that can help. Because there's nowhere else that we can really get the information from.
Hmm.
So I would definitely say that. And like I already said, the mentor thing. Um, and like read a book, like maybe read like a business book or brush up on some business stuff because as nurses and nurse practitioners, we're not taught anything about business. So that would probably be another tip and something that I'm continuing to work on.
Hmm.
Um, Learning about business because we've never been exposed to that. And you're gonna have to wear that business owner hat. There's the business owner hat that does XYZ and makes these decisions, and then there's the NP hat that's seeing the patients and the providers.
Absolutely.
So understanding that those roles are gonna maybe feel weird at first.
Mhm.
And if you can just kind of like educate yourself a little bit, it won't feel so
Oh,
awkward.
yeah. I think two things I want to mention there. A good book is Carolyn Boopert's book. She is a NP, but also an attorney. I don't know if you've looked at her book or not. It's a
Hmm.
hardback book, but she brings the attorney side to it and also putting stuff in there.
Okay.
That's what I used when I very first started all of this stuff. So that's a really good resource there. And then running your business, because we're nurses, right? And we
Yeah.
kind of go on our emotions and we want to help
Hmm.
people out and all that. But at the end of the day, it's still a business. And so you
Yes.
can't, people, I see people in the Facebook group all the time talking about how they weren't charging the co-pays, or this person now owes them a lot of money and what do they do, and that kind of thing.
Hmm.
I think of it's transactional, right? You can't go to the grocery store and walk out with a basket of groceries and say, I'll pay you next week when I get
Yeah.
paid. It doesn't work
Yeah.
that way, right? So having those processes where you're like, co-pay up front. I've
Yeah.
never been to a provider that didn't ask for my copay. The moment I walked in the door, that was the first thing they asked for. And if you didn't
Yep.
have your copay, then you had to reschedule your appointment. You didn't get back
Yep.
there, for that.
Yep.
So getting people, bad things happen to good people, right? And I think sometimes it's hard as a nurse because you want to help everybody. But if you start helping everybody, then you're going
Hmm.
to be the one that suffers for that.
Yep.
And know when to say, you know what, I would love to help you out, but I don't get any funding for helping people, and I don't take government insurances or whatever.
Hmm.
Why don't I refer you to somewhere that can help you out right now financially? And then once you get a job again or insurance or whatever, you're welcome to come back. I'm happy to take you back, but I just can't do it, because I see a lot of people doing pro bono work too. And that's a lot. You're killing yourself and you're not making any money. Like, you just can't keep doing that. So yeah,
Yeah.
that stuff is super important.
And
That
the
business
more you
hat.
do it, the better it gets, the more you flex that muscle.
Mhm.
That muscle didn't exist in me a year and a half ago. Now it's pretty strong.
Yeah.
You just have to keep flexing it.
Yeah,
And lean into your worth, recognize what you're worth. And when you
absolutely.
position yourself as an expert, that's a little bit easier too.
Exactly. I think your money mindset too plays a part in that,
Hmm.
because if
Hmm.
you've come from a place where you didn't have a lot of money, and a lot of us have, right? We came from either a childhood or early adulthood where we didn't have a lot of money, and we can resonate with that person and understand what they're
Yeah.
going through. But at the end of the day, you're still, again, it's a business, right? And you have to flex that muscle and just get used to doing that, and keeping your
Hmm.
business safe, because you just, that's it. At the end of the day, the money, right? You have to keep the money coming in.
Okay.
So let's see. Do you have any memorable stories? I know you've only been in business for a year and a half now, but do you have any
Hmm.
stories, and of course not patient names or anything, but where you really helped someone that it felt different for you versus working for someone else? So for example, when you're working for other people, sometimes you're having to rush those people through as fast as you can, and you really
Hmm.
don't feel like you can, you are making a difference, but you don't feel like you're making that difference, right? Because you're just turning them through as fast as you can. In private practice, I think you're able to connect with those people on a different level, and you're able to really take the time that you would wanted to do before. Do you have
Hmm.
any
Hmm.
like examples that you could provide people, like where you really went, I did the right thing. I'm so glad I
Yeah.
came to private practice.
I have a couple. Like when I was at the other place, like feedback I would always get was, oh, like no one's ever listened to me like this, or I would get good feedback, but I was there. So now I've been able to pull that feedback and create like a whole business of it, kind of thing. Like this is what I'm known for, and
Right.
it's so much bigger than just me. And then the other thing would be not necessarily like time with my patients, because I still spend the same amount of time. I mean, I do have a little flexibility in that. I kind of did the other place because it was still outpatient. It's just like my bandwidth, because I get to choose what patients I see. So
Mhm.
the time that I do spend with them feels just like better personally, and I'm not so burnt out. And I'm able to like really help them because I'm connecting with them and they're my preferred niche. I think as nurse practitioners and nurses, we feel like we don't want to exclude anyone, and we feel bad if we don't see so and so, but really we're doing them a disservice if we're not like fully vested in their
Mhm.
treatment plan. And if we're able to feel that with them, we can do so much better for them.
Yeah, I agree. That's
Mhm.
awesome. Where do you see like the future of mental health care going, and how are you preparing for that? How's your practice preparing for that? How do you prepare yourself for that? Are you
Mhm.
following any kind of, I mean, I know you follow our Facebook group, but any other
Mhm.
Facebook groups, or are you reading, or are you subscribing somewhere? Like, what is it personally that you think where mental health is going? And then how are you preparing for it in your practice?
I think, definitely the traditional medical system is on the way out. I feel like it's not serving
Mhm.
anybody. I do take insurance, so I am bound to, insurance, requirements and whatnot at the time. I really think it's going more of, an integrative sort of route where people are wanting to focus more on wellness or preventative stuff. And I'm kind of like, I have an insurance practice and it's doing great and all these things, but I dream about opening like a cash branch where I lean more into that sort of
Mhm.
future direction of psychiatry, of integrative options, and not functional medicine. I don't want to go full functional, but like in between Western and functional. And like that's where like the hormones come in and that type of stuff. People just want like personalized care and not to just
Right.
be, you know, a name on the list. So I think it will continue to do that and continue to be like people I think will start to continue to seek out like smaller places versus like big healthcare systems.
Mhm.
So that's where like that works in our favor because we are those smaller places that can make them feel, like important and heard and all those
Mhm.
things, not just like they're checking in for 15 minutes and then
Yeah, just for the
leaving.
number, for the
Hmm.
number. Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. And I do like the integrative, and even if you go functional too, I mean, I think there's
Hmm.
room for all of it because a lot of our problems are related to diet, are related to, deficiencies in vitamins and minerals and all that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
Our food supply is not the greatest at supplying any of that stuff. We're busy, we
Yeah.
don't eat well and all that, and then it causes other problems. And I think over the years we've just gotten to a place to where you go in, you get a prescription to fix it, right? Well, it's not going
Hmm.
to fix it if it's still there. So having
Yeah.
someone that can look at all of those things, like the hormones, and go, you're 50
Mhm.
something years old, you're probably going through, menopause. Let's look at all of these things because this could be
Yeah.
the reason for your depression. Yeah, you can take an antidepressant, but if we fix your hormones, you may not need this antidepressant anymore. So really
Hmm.
educating your population and stuff, and treating them as a whole person, and not just focusing on their mental health.
Yeah.
So
And especially for me, I know, like, I feel like that's a lot of women, I feel like
yeah.
want that and deserve that personalized care. Again, what would I want? And that's what I start to think about.
There's nothing wrong with that at all.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
everyone's gonna have their own little ideas of coming into their different practices. And there's nothing wrong with that. Just
Mhm.
figure out what works for you, what you're comfortable doing, and go with
Mhm.
it, run with it. You can
Mhm.
always flex, if you
Yeah.
decide, like if you did the integrative medicine and that didn't work out very well, and you're like,
Mhm.
this isn't working. You can always pivot, flex, go back
Yep.
to what you were doing before, or whatever gets
Mhm.
better, then you go more that
Yeah.
way. It's just kind of a journey. It's not an
Yeah.
end point. You're constantly taking different roads and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I know the technology and stuff. So people will ask,
Mhm.
what kind of technology do you use? What phone systems and computer
Mhm.
systems and all that kind of stuff. What are you using in your practice? So how do you use technology in your practice to improve your patient outcomes and just to improve the patient,
Experience.
experience overall?
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm using Spruce for communicating with patients, and Spruce I can fax, I can email, I can
Hmm.
text, I can secure message. I think one thing that my practice is really known for is responsiveness. And I give Spruce a lot of that credit because we can all be on there and we can all respond. My office manager responds, it's all there and it's easy to do. So that's huge. Patients, they don't have to wait days to hear back from a doc
Right.
if they even hear back. I use Intake Q, of course,
Hmm.
but my patients, I mean, their intake forms are on there. I feel like I don't have complaints about any of that. I don't typically hear complaints. They don't message me in there or anything, but the intake paperwork is real seamless and electronic, and nobody seems to have issues. So it's pretty straightforward. Like, oh, you want to be a patient? This is what you need to do.
Hmm.
This is how you get a hold of me. And there's not like a whole lot of like, oh, you can get a hold of me here or here or here. Like it's like you can text me if you're okay with unsecure, or download the app. We can be secure.
Right.
Which I think, if you don't confuse them, that's the best thing.
Well, it could be confusing for everybody else too. Like, I
Yeah.
need to check portal, I need to check emails, I need to check my phone system. You have
Hmm.
all these different places, and I think that's why we recommend Spruce, because we were there
Hmm.
when I opened my boyfriend's practice, like trying to figure out what systems worked, and worked well together without
Hmm.
being crazy expensive. we were checking, I was checking, I felt like I was chasing my tail at the end of the day, trying to make sure that I found, checked all the places and got back to all the people. And I just felt like I was going to drop the ball somewhere. So having it
Yeah.
streamlined into one place really seems to help with everybody in the office, whether you're doing it yourself and you're wearing all the hats, or if you have an assistant and maybe multiple providers, just bringing it into one place just really helps things a lot.
Yeah, it
So,
definitely does.
I know Silverleaf has helped you a lot with your stuff. Can you just tell us how we helped you, what we set up for you, saying how you felt about that whole process, and if you would recommend us again or not? Just real simple. I can take if you got some, but I just want the audience to know kind of how we helped you in your success with your private practice.
Yeah. So the first thing you guys helped me with was my intake queue. That was huge. I was with, it was like, I went live with my intake queue January of this year. So prior to that in my practice, I was using Luminello. And I wanted to switch over. So that was, thankfully I did it before I had as many patients as I do now. But I also was, like completely overwhelmed with how to set it up. I'm not really a tech savvy person. I would way rather see patients or take a CEU or go have coffee with a therapist. I'm very big into outsourcing. I think that's another thing if you're going to do your own business, like be open to outsourcing the things that you don't know how to do because it's not worth your time to figure it out, do it wrong, have to fix it, all that stuff. So you guys set up my intake queue. Good. And that was, great. Crystal is who I worked with, and she was so responsive and helpful and all the things. Spruce, Megan helped me set that up. And that was great because again, like, oh, new technology, I'm scared kind of thing. Those for me are roadblocks. Without like the help of like someone like you guys, like those for me would have been roadblocks. Like, oh, I'm, you know what? I can't even figure out this EHR. I'm going to go back to my working for somebody else. So it helped. It's, helped me get past that. Logo and my website, which were all great experiences as well. And then most recently, you guys put my new providers. I hired 2 providers and I said, hey, Crystal, I need some help. And she got them all in there and they were functioning and it was awesome because I was like, I know there's so much intricacies in here and I don't want to mess it up. And I need each provider to have their own Doxy link and I need this and that. And it was so fast. It was wonderful. So could I have done that myself? Maybe, sure, probably. Did I want to spend the time doing that? No, especially when you guys know that system so well. So that was the most recent thing that I just did a couple months ago, and it was so, so helpful.
Awesome. How long did it take for us to set you up from start to finish?
Me, myself, or my providers?
When you very first started, how long did it take from start to finish? Do you remember?
I think it was around the time, like the estimated time. I don't remember at the time how long it was, like 60 days, 90 days,
90
something
days.
like that.
Yeah. Usually around the 90 days mark.
I think it was around there. It might have been a little bit less. But it also depends on how fast I could get like my part of it done as well. So as long as I was on top of it, which I tried to be, then it was definitely what I wanted time frame wise. I wanted to go live January 1st and I was in there playing around in December and then I was like, moving patients over and stuff. So there was no qualms in terms of speed.
How many patients did you have that you moved over?
I was under 100 at the time. I was maybe like 70-ish.
That's not too terrible. It's still a little bit of work to move patients over and all that. That process isn't easy to move from one platform to another. So anything else? We've covered a lot of stuff. Anything else? Any final parting words that you would have for anybody that is thinking about starting their practice or maybe struggling with the idea of doing it? Any final advice or words that you would want to have for them?
Yeah, I would just say like, don't be afraid to ask for help. A lot of us are like type A do-it-ourselfers kind of people. Don't be afraid to lean into the experts, people that can help you. I would not be here without help. And also it strengthens my bandwidth so that I can give more to my patients. I think that's, don't be afraid to ask someone, you find somebody good. I have lots of NPs like in the state that will message me, hey, can I ask you this real quick? Can I ask you this real quick? Just don't be afraid to try to start building the life that you want to build because it's out there for you. It's worth it. And it's awesome on this side. So yeah, just lean into your network.
Yeah, just jump, just do it.
Do it.
Just do it. Well, I
Yes,
appreciate
ma'am.
you taking your time out with me, Amy. I mean, I know
Yeah.
you're busy and everything. So
Yeah, you're
thank
good.
you so much for taking time and telling people about your journey and everything.
Yeah.
And definitely let us know if you need anything for sure. And I wish you the very best. I'm like, you're doing great. I mean, golly, a year and a
Yeah.
half bringing more people in. That's amazing. So I'd love to hear those
Yeah.
stories too. So
Yeah,
everything,
absolutely.
let us know. And for our guests that may be watching or listening, let us know if we can help you in any way to get your private
Yeah.
practice started. And take care, Amy. We'll be
All right.
talking. Okay.
Bye. Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.